brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the brothers Wisp.
Hey guys, this is Mike, and we're here with a very special edition of the Brothers Wisp. Special in that we actually have both Justins on for the first time in a very long time. We also have a guest, Glenn Kelley, who's represented by the blue box in the corner. Why don't you go and say hi, Glenn, and tell us 10 seconds of what you do.
Glenn Kelley here. I operate a consultant firm called Connectivity Engineer, and we help everybody with everything from the basic WISP stuff to all the way up to the data center environment within networking.
Alrighty, and then upper right corner you've got Justin Wilson. Just go ahead and say hi.
How's everybody doing tonight?
And, I see you had your camera's picking up your G.I. Joe collection.
Yeah, I've been doing some rearranging here, so I'm trying to hide the light back here.
Oh, yeah.
I got a bad light that I need to replace soon.
Sure. In the lower right corner, we got Justin Miller. How are you?
I'm good. How's it going?
So why it's special edition is that today we got, I caught the news that Ubiquiti is suing Cambium. They're not only suing Cambium, but they're suing two of Cambium's employees. They're suing a distributor called Winncom, and they're suing a WISP in BLIP networks down in Southern Illinois.
So before we get started,
sure.
let me add something here. None of us are attorneys. This is not to be construed as legal advice. This is not to be construed as advice at all. This is an ongoing litigation between two parties that we are just commenting on.
Entertainment purposes only.
Yep, all of our opinions are our own.
None of us stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So.
Well, I guess Glenn may have. He was traveling.
Well, Glenn, take it from there.
Nope, I drove all night, so I'm sure there's a country song I could write about that. But you just have enough pity for me. In fact, I passed by. Most likely, Mike passed through your stuff, and then I know it passed Justin as well, but made it back to Ohio. I was in Peoria yesterday, and then Wisconsin last night, and so now I'm in Southern Ohio. So yeah.
Well, yeah, you drove right through my area then.
Yep. I was really tempted just to get out and start using the Ubiquiti's product to start just shutting your stuff off, but I figured it better not. It might not work.
So let's maybe Mike, you can explain why this happened.
Sure. So there's a 74-page complaint that Ubiquiti has filed, and to sum it up, it is about Cambium's Elevate program. We've done a couple of videos on that where it is since pretty much everybody is using the same chipsets, Cambium, Ubiquiti, Microtik Wireless, several of the others, but they don't have quite the volume to yet gain Cambium's interest. Cambium, with a few years ago, hit the industry with a Atheros-based, point to multi-point system that was unique at the time. Well, one or two other high-cost systems, but GPS sync would work as one would expect it to work. And so then after they were doing that for a while, they were picking up a lot of Ubiquiti networks. Meanwhile,
So essentially, the Elevate software allowed you to take a Cambium hardware device or a Ubiquiti hardware device and load the Cambium software onto it, essentially making it a Cambium inside with a Ubiquiti outside. For those of you, who aren't familiar with the Elevate side of things.
Yeah, basically you're just replacing the operating system in essence. Keeping the hardware, but replacing the operating system.
Yep.
But, yeah, and so they go into significant legal complaining, for lack of a better term, for 398 paragraphs, going from RICO violations to, co-conspiracy. It's quite the list of allegations, and lots of people commented on how they, kind of foresaw this coming. I kind of, was wondering at first, but then, some of the other FCC developments in the past few years kind of put my concerns aside. But let's just, I guess, start at the top. Being, just the whole concept of, Cambium loading their software onto Ubiquiti and Microtik hardware. What do you guys, think about that from a, where, does Ubiquiti have any grounds to stand on?
So the question becomes who owns the hardware? So does the end user actually own the hardware? If they own the hardware, do they have license to do whatever they want with that hardware? The what really boils my blood on this is they're suing the end user ISP. Everything else, of Cambium is, okay, we're suing Cambium. There's an argument there. That's why we have attorneys. So from the get-go, who owns the hardware, and was the software, is the software proprietary? Well, the software is proprietary, but if you just replace the hardware or just replace the software, are you really doing anything malicious to the Ubiquiti software? You're just replacing it. To me, it's like replacing Windows with Linux.
Are you circumventing copy protection by doing so?
Well, good question.
It's
No.
TFTP load, right? I mean,
Yeah, there was a case. There was a case in where, and now the Funk Company made a CMTS, and we went through something very, very similar with the MSO that I was working with, and where our CMTS literally would have to reboot it every 8 to 10 hours. And when the CMTS, I happened to be elsewhere and realized that I can load up a Cisco UBR software and make it work. When that CMTS company came over and asked how we fixed it, we didn't tell them. When they pressed and finally figured out what we did, they tried the legal route to tell us that we couldn't load. And we own the hardware. We stuck to our guns and we won. And let me just pause and say, Para, the CEO of Ubiquiti, has said that he has more times than not called the Ubiquiti community the evangelical community. But this move, he's taken his saints, right, and he's willing to leave them in purgatory. Anybody that has bought the hardware, now they're stuck with, can I use it? Can I use it? And he's willing to drag them into hell itself. Because he wants to win at all costs. And I really believe that, at the end of the day, the community is going to end up backfiring. The community is not going to, I think it'll end up backfiring on them. Ubiquiti doesn't really have customer service, and it uses its own community as a core competitive advantage because we help each other. And when you take your apostles and you crucify them, right? And in public, I put out an offer that said, hey guys, I'm willing to help you move to any other product. I don't have staff to help people do that today. Everybody's saying, all right, I'm done with routers. I'll move what I can off and I got more hits than I ever would imagine. So
Yeah,
So we know
it's,
Glenn doesn't like Ubiquiti at this point.
it's,
Well,
I think
truth
I
is,
saw it
great-
like 200 comments in just a couple hours.
yeah, it's a great product. It's a great product. I honestly believe in the product. I don't believe in the leadership at present.
So the question becomes kind of like what Miller was saying. If they're using a open source bootloader, is that circumventing anything?
The only thing that I think Ubiquiti. Go ahead.
I think it's U-boot.
Yeah, it's a
Is what
U-boot.
Technically,
So it's a
and that's-
GPL bootloader.
Yeah.
So the code's there. I'm not a programmer, so I don't know all the ins and outs of GPL law and all of that, but it is a GPL bootloader.
I sent a couple notes. I haven't heard back from anybody except when they told me it's already under review from the Freedom Software Foundation. And I really have a feeling that they may end up coming. I can't say for a fact, but I really believe that they may end up coming to defend Cambium in this, because at the end of the day, you're buying hardware, and really what they would do is they would be defending the end user, not specifically Cambium. But as a friend of the court, which something really interesting is Chris Buechler, the guy who created PFSense, now is on Ubiquiti's team, and the Freedom Software Foundation came to his defense when people were stealing PF, and labeling it as their own. So that's kind of an interesting twist.
Yeah, and so we've kind of touched about hardware versus software, OS versus bootloader versus something else, and I look back to a 2015 post on the FCC's website by Julie Knapp, chief of the Office of Engineering and Technology, which I've had a chance to meet Julie Knapp several times many years ago at Part 15 events, WISP cons. Julie Knapp, I think, was at one or two of them. And so this is about when they were trying to rein in some of the people using certified hardware, or certified products, I should say, outside of the intention of the manufacturer, compliance-wise, lying on antenna size, to have greatly exaggerated output powers, and circumventing DFS protections and using illegal channels. And so they were working on how do they rein that in, and a couple sentences out of this page says, our original lab guidance document released pursuant to that order asked manufacturers to explain how its device is protected from flashing and the installation of third-party firmware such as DD-WRT. This particular question prompted a fair bit of confusion. We were mandating wholesale blocking of open source modifications. We were not, but we agree that the guidance we provide to manufacturers must be crystal clear to avoid confusion. So today we released a revision to that guidance to clarify our instructions were narrowly focused on modifications that would take a device out of compliance. The revised guidance now more accurately reflects that our intent in both the uni rules as well as our current rulemaking, and we hope that it serves as a guidepost for the rules as we move from proposal to adoption.
So we have the FCC angle, but then we also have the, is it, quote, legal to flash the software? I agree that, and you can answer this for me. None of the, if you flash the, say, an M5 rocket, Cambium did not certify that system, correct?
I'm not certain. When I asked them about that initially, I forget the exact wording, so it could be way out. But they said that I believe they said that it would still be covered by the original hardware certification.
Okay. So I can see Ubiquiti's argument that, hey, by flashing this firmware, it could take the unit out of compliance. Because my understanding is if it is now a new unit, it has to have new stickers on it. You know, a technicality, but it has to have a new, you know, FCC ID and stuff like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know, that I can maybe agree with that. But then the other option is, you know, is it illegal to just change the software? So is the FCC saying it is legal or illegal to change the software, or are they just saying as long as it doesn't make it out of compliance, we allow you to do it?
My read on that is as long as it does not take the device out of, you know, compliance, you know, going outside of the requirements of the band that it's in, they don't care.
That's kind of how I took it, and then the question becomes, is it up to Ubiquiti to try to say, hey, someone is doing this to our hardware, or is Ubiquiti supposed to say, hey, someone is doing this to our hardware, I'm reporting it to the FCC, I'm wiping my hands of it, it's in your plate?
Well, at the end of the day, I see it very much like if I buy a car from, I don't care who, I buy a Ford, and I'm driving down the road, I stop and I get, 69% tint when it came with, 3%, right? Or whatever. I don't know which way they go. More, I guess, is more, is Ford now responsible to report to the DMV that I have a deeper tint on my vehicle than what they installed? Or if I'm in Illinois or if I'm in Indiana, should Ford report my vehicle because I put different headlights in? Or do we use the law enforcement within the state to enforce, or within whoever has jurisdiction to enforce the law? And so the bottom line here is this. There is case law already on the books, and where BIOS or if I were using any other BIOS and I decided to upgrade my BIOS so I could take take my chipset and make it go faster. Yes, it voids my warranty. We expect that to happen because I might melt my chip, but I can still overclock my motherboard. I can overclock, do whatever I want with whatever I purchase. Now, if I do that and it causes a fire in my home, that is not Ubiquiti's problem, or that is not the motherboard manufacturer's problem, because I've overclocked it. I've taken it outside the confines of what it was originally used for. But Ubiquiti themselves has a history of doing stuff like this. Synopsys claimed that Ubiquiti is using counterfeit keys at least 39,000 times. Get that, 39,000 times, with 15 different usernames working around the paid system that they had 66 times, and they were sued for it. So Ubiquiti is not a clean company when you actually take a look at their history. I mean, they circumvent and go around whenever it suits them. But the fact that they're now losing money because somebody has a different product that people like a little bit better, perhaps, or whatever, and they're going there, they're willing to sacrifice their users. And to me, I would say if they have a bitch, go after the manufacturer that's causing you a problem all day long and say, hey, you guys are breaking compliance or whatever, and you're making our product have a problem. I get that. But going after the end user and going after the distributors, I think is really bad form. And personally, that's the reason why I said I'll help somebody come off of it.
Yeah. I mean, the suing the end user is, my dad, who was an attorney for many years, always told his clients, never sue your customer unless they owe you money. Everything else is, hey, you just need to let it go, or you need to, come up with a business practice that either recoups some of the money or prevents it from happening again. If you go to war with the customer over anything but money, you're in a losing battle.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. Whether they win in court or not, I haven't read everything in the 74 pages to know for sure if they have a case there or not.
That's before you go to bed, right? You're gonna read that.
Yeah.
I spent some time trying to read it on the phone. I get, as my wife was driving over the last how many hours. I'm with you. It's long.
But regardless of what happens in court, Ubiquiti has already lost.
Yes.
In the court of public opinion.
Because they sued an end-user ISP. If I'm an ISP, why do I want to use their products now? Because they could potentially sue me if I used them wrong. Now, I get they're trying to make a collusion case, Russians, blah, blah, blah. We hear that all the time. Yeah. So I get they're trying to make a collusion case, hey, the manufacturer was in on this, the distributor was in on this, and the end user was in on this. They're ganging up against us. I get the argument.
So my question is this. If they win, let's say they do have a case. Let's say they do win. And let me just pause and say the exact thing that they are saying takes it out of compliance, anybody can do within their own loaded software that comes on the radio, period. You can take it out of compliance yourself. Yeah. So for them to claim that it's a hack when it's actually an operating system replacement, I think is comical. Mm-hmm. But what is to stop them from going, and let's say there are 75 other ISPs that have done elevations, and if they win, do they go and say, well, how many elevate? Because they're going to ask for all the software back, and everybody that has elevated, they want access to all of that. And the truth is, I think in discovery they'll get that, and it would not shock me at all if all of a sudden they enjoined 70 or 80 or however many other customers on a per license basis. On a per count basis to go after them, and even if they didn't, the fact that if this does happen to be an issue, they just opened up for the FCC to go after anybody and give them count 1, count 2, count 3, count 50, count 70, count 80, count 200, whatever, for every radio that a vendor or that an ISP has potentially elevated as a charge. And the FCC could start handing out fines if it's, quote, found to be that is the case. And I personally believe that Ubiquiti has a responsibility. Yes, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the stockholders, but in order to keep that, they really have a responsibility to the ISPs to give us a warning and say, hey, if you've done this, this is something we're researching. This is what we found. You should revert it based upon this. And give a public warning, etc., and say. Because at the end of the day, what happens if everybody starts getting handed fines because they quote unquote went out of compliance? It can really hurt the industry, and I don't know. I just think that itself is bad news.
But if they're to play devil's advocate, if they're deemed to be out of compliance, if they do win, that's Cambium's fault. Cambium made them out of compliance. The thing that I read in the complaint was that Ubiquiti then wants all of that software back. And I read it as they want it back from the end user because they're suing an end user. So they want it back from them. And like you say, it at that point, it doesn't become the FCC. Because Cambium made you out of compliance. Okay, you're going to get a fine. That's on Cambium if they win, because they would win on the fact that it was Cambium who did this. So then, if Ubiquiti follows through with what they're saying, they want all that stuff back.
Yes, but the bottom line is whether it's out of ignorance or not. If the FCC decides to go after an end user, they can. When Citron Research attacked Ubiquiti a number of months ago, all of us, I don't know, I know Mike defended it, I know Justin Wilson defended it, I don't know Justin Miller if you did, but when all these guys were attacking him and saying, oh, they're a fake company, this is ready to implode, I know the other, Mike and Justin and I, we said, no, they're a real company, and we came to their defense. So, I mean, when they stated that Robert Pear has the trappings of wealth, has seemed to be more interested in changing society with a transformative technology, we defended Ubiquiti when that charge came, and now I can no longer do that because in reality this is transformative technology that would change society, and they're more interested in the money side and not helping ISPs, so much so that they're attacking them. And if this does actually go through, there is a legal case for the FCC to go after anybody that loaded it and say you're out of compliance. Here's a fine. Whether they can then go after Cambium and ask Cambium to pay for it, but they may not have the money to sue Cambium after they're done, being handed fines. I have a guy that I just talked to. He elevated almost 200 customers. He only has 260. This would bankrupt him if he got handed fines on every single one of them, and he's just getting started. So,
but Ubiquiti also says they want the software back.
Correct.
So it has to be removed from the customer, regardless of what the FCC says. Otherwise, they should have said, hey, we're deferring, the stuff to the FCC. No, they actually stated we want the software back from everybody named, including an end user ISP.
Right.
Okay, I can get they want it back from Cambium, they want it back from the employees, they want it back from the distributor. But when they named that end user ISP that said, we want it back from you, they punch themselves in the balls.
Yep, and I hope Cambium, I can't speak for Cambium, I don't work for them, etc. But right now I hope that Cambium has something or somebody around the Cambium community has some plan to be able to say, okay, well, we've just open sourced, or we understand how the Elevate product works, taking a look at the software, because if they do get something that says, well, you need to pause the Elevate license, and anybody that has one, that itself is going to be detrimental, while this case takes, while it goes through the courts. And a judge could do that, and if that happens, you got a lot of providers that are going to have stuff turned off overnight if they say turn off the. So I really hope, and let me go one other way. The only way for that I see. John Deere, I don't know who here is in farming. I know, Mike, your family is. John Deere had a very similar problem, so much so that when you buy a John Deere, you don't actually buy the John Deere. It's a long-term lease forever, but the John Deere still owns the tractor. So you can't load your own stuff. You have to use their technicians. You have to use their software. And so at the end of the day, that's what I really think is going to end up happening. We're going to see guys like Ubiquiti. We're going to see guys like Cambium. We're going to see Mimosa. And I mean, Ignite is already doing this, in where you buy a license, for the and you pay X amount of dollars per user per month, and whether you own the hardware or not, what I think is really going to end up happening is you're going to see a long-term approach where everybody is leasing hardware from the manufacturer, even though they bought it. It's a long-term lease, with a per subscriber dollar value, and this move, it'll help all the companies financially, but it's not going to help. It's not going to help us providers be able to provide internet at a lower cost.
Or you'll
because
see,
that's the only way for them to protect their intellectual property and make it so you can't load something on their hardware. It belongs to them. You're just using it.
Yeah. They'll say, hey, you have a perpetual license for this, the software and the hardware. We're licensing this to you as long as you agree to the terms of the license.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
So when you buy a radio, and you pull it out of the box, usually you boot it up, and that first page when you sign in is I agree these terms of service. If the first thing you do is hold the reset button for 20 seconds and put it in TFTP recovery mode and load a different firmware on there, are you technically not agreeing to their terms of service?
What I would say is the difference is at the time of purchase you would be agreeing to a license agreement in order for them to even ship it to you, or any VAR to ship it to you, and in order for you to get that, you would not own the hardware itself. You would have a long-term lease. It doesn't matter if they say we're going to lease you this hardware for 1,000 years, for $1. It's still our hardware. You can't load anything on it. We no longer will have ownership of the device itself. That's the only way that I can see for them to get around it. They maintain ownership and they license us the use of that hardware, during that time. Then
or
it doesn't matter.
We'll go back to, Miller will go back to, by breaking this seal, you agree to the license.
Yep.
Yeah, they have to put a sticker on it.
Yeah, they'd have to, put a little sticker on it by breaking this seal.
Well, they have experience at making up stickers since they're the ones that seem to require it for DFS activations.
Well, I think everybody will move to that model.
Yeah.
Well,
at,
maybe
on-
the one
at,
one company that doesn't move to that model will have a distinct advantage.
Yeah.
yeah,
Own the hardware, guys.
Yep.
Buy us.
Yeah.
On a bit of a tangent from that, so we've got Ubiquiti suing Cambium and so on. Cambium and Associates for their term, their definition of associates, for putting other software on their products. DD-WRT has 77 Ubiquiti products on their wiki, and 76 of them, I'm assuming the one of them is just not supported because nobody wants it. 76 of them,
It's MPI.
you can buy a $22 license from DD-WRT, and now you can install and activate DD-WRT on 76 Ubiquiti products. This is more egregious than Cambium because Cambium's not even charging you for the Elevate software. They're charging you
In
for
most cases, yep.
they're charging you for a license for their access point to accept your third-party hardware. DD-WRT is charging you money to use their software on a Ubiquiti product. So when are they going to go after DD-WRT?
But that opens. See, the bottom line is they're all using the same chipsets, etc. And so,
right.
really, what they're pissed off about is that a company as big as Cambium, because DD-WRT, while it's used and a lot of people are seeing it, they're probably not seeing that many people doing it on a grander scale.
Well, right, yeah.
And DD-WRT, this is selective because DD-WRT didn't really move people into the idea of white box wisping, you know what I mean? Like where I can take any product, load my version of what I want on it, and go to town. But look at BitLimap. BitLimap has did the same exact thing. They said hardware and software is decoupled, right? Yep. And that's their entire shtick. You
got the whole open switch infrastructure stuff that's going on too, the white box switches.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is just like the white box or open box. That's exactly what Cambium realized and said, hey, you can do whatever you want. You own the hardware. And so the biggest question that at the end of the day is this. I think you break it down in a couple very, very key things. Do I own the hardware or not? Can I load what I want on my own hardware when I want it? It's kind of like Chevy saying, well, you know what? In my S10, I can't decide to put a Ford engine, or I can't put a Volvo, or I can't. And at the end of the day, I bought the damn truck. It's mine. And so that's the. Now that being said, there's a second thing. If I put, if I take my Pinto and I put a Porsche engine in it. Granted, it's not. The Pinto doesn't have roll bars. It was never meant to go down the track at 11.2, seconds in a quarter mile. But if I can make it do that, does that mean that I shouldn't be able to, and that they should sue me? And is that collusion because a whole bunch of car people got together and said, "Hey, let's figure out how to do this"? Is that collusion? Yeah. So this is a very slippery slope. At the end of the day, I think that they should celebrate the fact that they have a decent GUI, that they have a decent product, and in reality, why not take why not do the reverse approach and say, hey, can I take somebody else's product and can I make you use Ubiquiti's platform?
If we take your car analogy, you put the Ford engine in your Chevy. So then you probably have to, in a modern car, you have to reprogram your computer. So that computer is considered proprietary to, GM or whoever.
Or you just replace it. There are replacement ECUs you can get.
Yep.
But if we correspond that to the Ubiquiti thing, we're not replacing the ECU. We're loading new software onto the computer. So
but you can do that with vehicles now.
Yeah. So if we do that with the vehicle now, is that is GM going to come sue the end user? No, because they're going to alienate the car guys and gals from doing that to their cars.
You guys must not have emission testing where you are.
I lived in New Jersey. It was
You got to account for that too.
Yeah, when I lived in New Jersey, it was batshit crazy. They actually failed. You'll love this. They failed. I was chief of a fire and EMS department. They failed our vehicles to stay in New Jersey because they had red lights on the top of them. It's a damn fire truck. Come on, really? That's government for you. So
I have another analogy here. If you buy a Microsoft Surface Go tablet or Surface tablet, it's Microsoft, it's Windows, and you load Linux on it.
Mm-hmm.
It could potentially cause the Wi-Fi card in there to go out of spec.
Yeah, true.
It can cause, emissions that come out of the machine. It could cause all kinds of stuff. So, is it the same kind of thing? Would this ruling set up precedents that's greater than just the WISP industry?
Oh,
Yeah,
completely. Because what if I have a Samsung Note whatever, the ones that blew up, and now all of a sudden I decided I'm going to load on my own OS on it, and their battery has a quote problem, or they claim it. That's the reason why I believe when I reached out to the Frame Software Foundation and said, "What do you guys think?" They said, "We're seriously looking at it. This has serious implications." And it does, and truth is, it's on every facet of our life. Because now, all of a sudden, what happens if, heck, my refrigerator has a freaking computer now, right? Everything does. So what happened? If think
Ubiquiti would have left the end user out of the complaint, if they would have stopped at the manufacturer Cambium and the distributor Winncom, if they would have stopped there, we wouldn't be having as much of a conversation as we would, because
we
now
may
they
not even be having this conversation right now at all.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, because now they've drug it down to every person. This can affect every person, not just WISPs. We can say, hey, just like Miller said, hey, I loaded on Linux on my Surface. If my user agreement allowed that. And I'm guessing, we're going to see user agreements change.
Well, Mac OS 10 already has that in it.
Yep.
You're not supposed to modify the operating system and reload it on any non-Apple hardware. So,
here's
time.
But here's it's up to 1,300 words. Here's one of the analogies I used in my blog post. I haven't published it yet, but. So you have Apple hardware. What if you loaded Linux onto that Apple hardware? The user agreement doesn't say anything that you can't do that.
They actually provide tools, boot camp tools, to load Windows. So
they understand that when the customer buys the hardware, it's their hardware. So
now did Apple think that initially, or did they do that after they got slapped with the iPhone jailbreaking thing and saying, no, you can't prevent that?
Boot camp's been around since a very long time. It's pretty old.
Okay.
Well, it's actually gotten harder to do, but
they tried locking people out of
Apple. Apple learned, because what ended up happening is Apple learned way back when everybody didn't want the PowerPC processor anymore, etc. And they went through 2 revisions of chipsets, and then finally said, okay, let's go to the one that everybody else is using, because they were losing market share, left and right, and and at the end of the day, everybody else has their own special design. But if it's coming at into the 802.11 kind of market, This is exactly what it is, So I'm buying the hardware; it's my hardware, And by the way, Apple tried suing way back when, long before the 3Com Palm Pilot was out, with something that they had called the Apple Note.
Newton.
The Newton rather. Yeah, Jeff Alhom.
I have one right over here in the closet.
Jeff Alhom was the father of 802.11, and at the end of the day, when he built the 802.11 standard, he said this is an open standard. So the fact that they are, and he started a company called DigitalOcean. And he's based out of Kansas City. Good friends with the guy. This is something that I wonder what he's going to think about what he created, and the 802.11 being an open standard. Basically, it's just like the GPL. You have to have your hardware open. You have to have this. You have to have that. Because at the end of the day, they may win on this, but then they may end up getting sued because they're not following the, just because I can win based upon my own license agreement, that doesn't mean I'm not violating somebody else's license agreement for the hardware or the platform that I'm using, to make that license. So I really wonder how deep this will go. They may not have realized, but they may have opened up a can of whoop ass on themselves by doing this, not just with their customer base, but also from a legal perspective. I'm not an attorney, as Justin said. I don't know, but I do think it would be interesting to see, where that went.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of from that concept of letting sleeping dogs lie. If Ubiquiti hadn't raised a big stink about license agreement violations, people that they're potentially infringing upon, they wouldn't maybe care so much because Ubiquiti's not being a dick about it.
Yep.
But now that they are.
Yep. Well,
maybe somebody else is going to walk in the room and.
Yep.
So we're all smart guys here. In the complaint, they mention hacking. So do you guys think, and this is all, again, pure speculation, pure opinion, do you guys think Cambium hacked the Ubiquiti firmware, or did they just say, hey, we can load our own image onto the Ubiquiti hardware?
Probably white room reverse engineered.
And is that illegal because they're using an open bootloader?
There's precedent for that. There's precedent for that. When they do the original BIOSes, they white room reverse engineer the BIOS for clone PCs.
Okay.
Yet I'm gonna say that given that they're such similar hardware platforms, they probably just took a Ubiquiti device and just put their software on it and said, "Does this work?"
Yeah.
I mean, because it's the same chip. It's the same damn hardware.
Well, it's the same chip, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of other differences. Whether it comes out to voltage, whether it comes out to a number of other things they're going to have to take into. So at the end of the day, if they loaded it, will it work? It might have, it might have. But at the end of the day, they did. I'm pretty confident that somebody did some reverse engineering or testing, taking a look at it and saying, hey, what do we have to do to make this better? I doubt it.
Sure, yeah. Install their software, and then what doesn't work or what doesn't work right, and then fix it.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you take these products apart and you take a look at them, you realize that one of them, they're spending, $1 something on their capacitor, and the other guys, or so it looks like, and the other guys are spending pennies. You know what I mean? So there is a huge difference in the hardware platform itself. That's at least my take when I looked at the inside of them. But yeah, I mean. I still think it comes down to they need to be smacked because what this means for every industry, is huge. And truth is, I think what we're looking at is something that's going to be in the courts for years, not days, unless if it gets thrown out. And I don't think Cambium will settle, at all. And this is going to be in the court for years, so much so that it might end up actually having to go like the John Deere and some of those other ones did, all the way up to SCOTUS to actually make a decision.
Yet, Lexmark versus the ink cartridge recycler people, went all the way to SCOTUS, and SCOTUS said, "You have no claim once you've sold this."
Yep, they own the hardware; they can do whatever they want on it.
I think there's enough precedent to, hey, nope, we're not dealing with this. We're not dealing with this. Okay, we'll deal with this. We're not dealing with this. I think there's going to be enough precedent where, when it goes to, the first hearings, the judge is going to say, no, there's going to be a solid enough argument. Because really, at the end of the day today, it's not about as much as the law. It's about who can make the better argument.
Yep.
Yep. And some of my clients know that well, what the law says and, how the attorneys fight over it.
Yep.
I mean, there's a reason, some of these attorneys get paid, $694 an hour because they are that good when it comes to the argument. Anybody can read a book and follow the law, but when you apply it and bring in all this other stuff, that's where the magic happens.
Yep.
So, do we have anything else groundbreaking on this, or just about wrap it up?
I mean, I'm with Glenn. I'm a fan of the Ubiquiti products, and I wouldn't have paid attention to this until they sued an end user, and that's just wrong.
I just want to see the Lifetime movie when they make it. What's the story with those two guys at Cambium and the WISP, and why is all that stuff interconnected? And the distributor. What was the deal with that? Why? What's the story behind all that? That's what I'm curious about. Just as much as about the legalities and the consequences. What's the story?
I think the bigger reason for that is because I believe that they feel that they're going to fall flat on their. This is my take. They know they're going to fall flat on the fact that you can't load whatever you want, because the end user owns whatever. But if they can prove collusion, or they can prove, if they can follow a conspiracy to take down this company based upon insider trading or insider facts, I haven't taken a look. I haven't taken a look at who's who in any of these companies, right? But I mean. Something really interesting is Ubiquiti is not known for keeping employees happy. They have one of the
customers.
Right, yeah, but I mean, Ubiquiti literally they have a huge turnover when it comes to the corporate culture at the top. Herb Greenberg, CNBC analyst, said that Pear was more interested in paying attention to his NBA team than his IPO. So he's not going to pay attention to any of his employees and their needs or wants or desires. That's a hell of a statement, right? So I mean, when things like that are said, it just makes you wonder. You're like, So for all we know, and I'm not saying this happened, but it could have been that, somebody left a company, had a non-compete, went somewhere else, gave the inside track how to do this. But when I didn't get through the entire, and Mike, I'm not sure if you did, get through the entire 300 plus as I'm reading it on my cell phone. I paid a couple bucks to get the complaint and read it. But there may be more to the story than what we see.
Are you suggesting that those two employees are ex-Ubiquiti employees? Because that would make it a little bit juicier.
No, I don't.
Well, they're not.
They're not, okay.
One of them
I don't know.
I believe.
I don't know who it is.
Yeah, I believe one of them is at the executive vice president level.
Okay.
Jeff, am I right on that?
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, Glenn, Ubiquiti does have a responsibility to, since they're a public company, they do have a responsibility to their shareholders to defend their intellectual property. I just think they took it too far.
Yep. But yeah, I agree.
Let me make a point in that. The money for them in the hardware or in the software? Because they don't charge for their software.
True.
So if you're buying more hardware and loading something else on it, it's good for them.
Yeah,
that should be a win-win.
Yeah.
That should be a win-win. But what I can say is I don't know, and I'm just going to pause. I'm going to bring up another vendor and slap them for a minute. When I had customers, I'm just watching Justin's face like, oh, who's this going to be?
Yeah, I know when Wispapalooza comes around,
Come on.
I'm going to be sitting there with a drink and someone's going to go, yeah, I watched you on the Brothers Wisp. What are you guys doing? And I'm going to be going, oh, God. Which vendor do we piss off now?
I'm a big fan of an LTE company that has disrupted the market. But I also slap the crap out of them because they have way too many outages with their core. But besides that, I'm not going to name them. But besides that, when my customers, when all their DNS traffic was going overseas to China, you know what? we don't know what else is happening on that radio.
True.
At the end of the day. And so, you know what? What I can tell you is if I can catalog and tell you where all my customers and what they're... Now, I'm not saying anybody's doing this, but what I can tell you, though, is I know tons of companies that make more money giving away... Kroger has a program where they give you money off your gas pump, right? And they spend millions of dollars on that program because they know everything about what you purchase because you slide a card in front of it and they know everything about you.
Yep.
And it's no wonder that, you know, when my wife, my wife didn't have the gall to tell me she was having the sixth child yet, but I knew it because we got Pampers in the damn mail. I was like, honey, are you pregnant? And she's like, yeah, you know, number 6 is on the way, right? I mean, you know, and I'm not even joking because when she bought the pregnancy test, you know, all of a sudden we got Pampers in the mail. So bottom line is that for all we know, if I don't know what their software else their software is doing, why are they giving you CRM away and, you know, all this? It may just be that they're a great company and they want you to use it, but it could also be that they're cataloging other data. I've never read their license agreement to say whether they can or can't, but you know, there could be.
Who all here pays for Facebook? You know,
I do.
Facebook, you're the product.
We are the product.
Well, I do as an advertiser. I pay for Facebook.
Right. Yep. So, but yeah, you know, so, I mean, and I'm not saying that they're doing that, but, you know, there may be another play, you know, data-wise or whatever else, why they want their software installed. But, you know, if it's strictly that they're a hardware company, you know, I think it's dumb to stab everybody. I'd sell more of it, you know.
No, and you know, they could be viewing it as, hey, if you're going away from our software, you're going to be buying the other vendor's hardware as well.
But you know,
they're already leaving.
Yeah, yeah. But the truth is, I'm not seeing that with the guys that are some of the guys that are elevating. I'm not seeing that at all. You know, because they don't. How expensive is a truck roll? Let's say it's $150 per home, right? Are you gonna roll out, you know, to 1,000 homes, you know, and or are you going to keep that radio up there until it dies? I'm going to keep it up there until it dies.
What happens when you replace that radio? You're not going to replace it with Ubiquiti if it's been elevated.
Potentially, but you're probably right. But in reality, I'm willing to bet that when it used to be that Ubiquiti, I know when we had our outfit in Ohio, we started with Ubiquiti and the failure rate was horrific. It's gotten much better. So from what, you know, from at least from what our customers report, it's gotten much better. So at the end of the day, chances are you may have. You're right. They may go to a product, or they may not. You know, I would say that remains to be seen, and the reason why is because if I can stock X amount of product on a shelf and I can get it dirt cheap, then and I already have all that stuff sitting there, for me to go to another product when I already have the stuff on my truck and I'm out, I'm just going to take what I already have and put it on. Once all my stock is cycled through, yeah, I might change then, but if I have small towers and big towers, right? I mean, I'll use a guy that's local here. Dave, he has a tower that has 200 some odd customers on it, and then he has towers that have 5. The towers that he has 5 or 6 customers, and that's all it's... Justin, you've been here. I mean,
Yep.
That's all that tower's ever going to reach. He's not going to put $1,000, product AP and everything up on that when he can do it with a Ubiquiti system. So as silly as it sounds, Ubiquiti is, you know, in many ways would be a better platform for him because he can do either or, you know, on his network.
True.
So I think it's very short-sighted. You know, I think if they approach this from the white box, you know, mentality, they'd probably sell more product.
Let me ask this question here: are WISPs UBNT's core customer now, or is it small business? Is it the switches and the Unify and the video cameras and now the LEDs, solar? Like all this stuff they're branching off on, are they seeing the WISP market dry up, or are they just branching out? Is it, you know, are they just trying to protect the dying business model?
the last time that I actually looked at one of the investor reports, it was still somewhere around 50-50, plus or minus a few percent.
Yeah.
Sales to WISPs, sales to everything else.
I see UBNT everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very popular product.
It's very ubiquitous. But
and just imagine when everybody can elevate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
DD-WRT.
Yeah.
So here's a question. I was trying to find this earlier, but my Google Foo wasn't working very well. I know DD-WRT, they had issues within themselves, how they were using the GPL, stuff like that. That's where a lot of the controversy of DD-WRT came from. It wasn't, was there controversy with DD-WRT and Linksys? Did Linksys try to go after them, or I was trying to find that, and part of me says
eventually they embraced it for sure, because they released a model that was specific for that.
Yep. But I didn't know at the beginning if Linksys tried to fight it, or what.
Well, which Linksys?
There's.
I mean, right? Because at the end of the day, I think what really happened is they were trying to fight it, but then they had an offer that was too good to be true, and they took it, and and then Linksys kind of became what it was, and fledged from there, as a brand. So yeah, I think that's why we haven't seen that bite as hard as it could have.
Well, part of it too was the original, because there's two models of the WRTs. The original model had a open source bootloader and things like that. Then they tried to close it. They put in their own proprietary bootloader, and you could no longer load the DD-WRT on it. So they tried to close it, but then they ran into, and I know Linksys themselves ran into some GPL issues, because they were not, the bootloader that they were using, they were not giving that, back to the community. So they got slapped for that, but I don't know if, Linksys and DD-WRT got into a tussy.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, honestly, almost all the people that run WISPs that I've met have all been people who want to tweak, fiddle, hack, modify, duct tape stuff together to get stuff to work. And so this action is very counterculture for the WISP market.
Yes.
Yep. At the end of the day, they're taking everybody that likes MacGyver and saying, nope, you can't be that guy. And, and I that's why I said, they're taking their own evangelists, they're taking their own apostles and crucifying them, and
they're going to sue Papermate for paper clips now, because that's the method of, I love it.
Yeah.
Where does it stop?
Yep.
But back to the financial, how much of a market there is. I'm looking at their last or second to last quarterly report here, and we've got, of course, third quarter 2017, service provider revenue was $105 million. Enterprise was $113.
Okay.
Go forward to second quarter 2018. Enterprise is up to 131 from 113. Service provider is up to 120 from 105. So they both gained about 15%.
So they both grew.
Or not 15,000. 15%, 15 million.
You're gonna end up more than 100%.
Yeah.
Well, that might fit their math according to the SEC filing. So, in the past, I mean, hey, this is a company that lost $46 million and cannot explain to anybody how it just happened.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
I remember that.
But so then we have so then going forward to third quarter 2018. So 1 quarter later, Enterprise goes up almost $20 million to $150 million. Service provider falls almost $20 million to $100 million.
Trigger. So the shareholders would say, what's going on here?
So
you guys need to fix this.
They're concentrating on stupid-ass cameras that you wear, and they're concentrating on dumbass lights, and they're not concentrating on this industry, to be blunt.
I do like the lights.
Well, I'm a Ubiquiti stockholder, and from a pure stockholder perspective, I don't care what the hell they sell, as long as my stock performs well. Money. Yeah, from a pure stockholder perspective. So I try to think of that as, hey, and they probably see the doom and gloom of the WISPs are. They're not going to be around, blah, blah. So they're trying to, I'm not saying that's what's going on, but, that's when you're that big of a company that you have to, okay, I have a strategy for this. What happens if the WISPs are regulated out of business in 2 years? What do? We need something else that is generating us revenue.
We take them to court to make sure that the FCC realizes that people might be out of compliance. Yeah, we put the nail on the coffin.
That's our business model.
But I can tell you what they really, everybody is missing a big piece of this puzzle, and it is the white box. Everybody hates OSHA in this industry, but there is a different OSHA that I think that they OSHWA is actually what they call themselves, and it's the Open Source Hardware Association. I think that they should embrace the hell out of this and say, our hardware can load BitLimat because it can. Our hardware can load, why aren't they going after BitLimat, by the way? Because it does the same bloody thing. Why aren't,
BitLimat hasn't had enough traction, probably.
Right. You're right.
Can't squeeze any water out of a rock.
Well, but you know what, though? They could have gone after BitLimat, made a case, and then they wouldn't have to take on the big boy and spend a lot more money going after, truth to be told is. So, why is it that they're not going after DD-WRT for the same exact reason? And those are the kind of things that I think may end up hurting them, because you're suing one, but you're not going after the other,
So a good attorney's going to say, hey, just like you said, why aren't you doing this?
Is DD-WRT an incorporated company, or is it just a bunch of guys doing a project on
But here's the thing: if it's a bunch of guys that are doing a project on GitHub, guess what? You still could go after them because there's collusion and there's.
Well, they're taking money. Mike said they're licensing stuff, so
right.
There's some sort of business underpinning.
Yep, and at the end of the day, even if it's just Joe and Bob, sitting in their underwear, twiddling their thumbs and writing code, they could say, hey, these guys colluded to go against us and they take our business, yada yada. Exactly what they're saying. This is why they went after the provider. This is why they went after Winncom. Yada yada yada. And say, here's a RICO Act, violation. It's the same argument. But I really think that they're missing. I really think they're missing the bigger picture. If they become a member of OSHWA, the Open Source Hardware Association, ours can be used on anything, anywhere. You can do anything you want. And by the way, here's our warning that says, if you're loading this, our product, you can load whatever, but you have to fall within the guidelines of, and that's up to the end user. I can buy a ham radio all day long, yep. and I can make my Yaesu broadcast a hell of a lot, more power than what I'm legally allowed. Very, very easy to do. Is it Yaesu's job to make sure I don't do that? No.
Yep. And the ham radio guys have had software-defined radios for years.
Yep.
My old business partner, he's building towers in 6 different places across the world, and they're putting in software-defined radios, and they're selling ham radio as a service. So you bring up your computer, you log in, and you say, hey, I want to talk on 440. I want to talk on 220. The software-defined radio, boots up that image, and now all of a sudden you're talking through your computer, and contesting's a big thing, and all this stuff.
Our long-lost brother JJ did that as well.
Yep.
He made his own software-defined radio. Crazy guy.
JJ, where are you? Come back.
I miss you. Did Ubiquiti kill off their VoIP phones platform as well? That's still a thing?
I think they still sell the phones, but they stopped the controller because they realized
it didn't do anything. You needed something else anyway. I mean, that was like. Yeah. I'd love to be in their board meetings and just be like, hey, we can make a product that a whole bunch of people are going to buy, and they ain't going to do shit. Because they still have to go get, a Grand Stream appliance, or they still have to go get, whatever. A
SIP provider, yeah.
A SIP provider, an asterisk, and they got it, that was just, that was poorly planned,
But, so I guess to kind of try to wrap this up a little bit, because we're going on for quite some time. So what I'm going to say is that what probably caused this to happen, why it didn't happen sooner, was, losing $20 million in service provider revenue, fiscal third quarter, and their investors said, what the fuck? And this is Ubiquiti's excuse. Cambium stealing our customers.
It's not that other LTE company or that other one that has the 60 gig stuff or the 7080 stuff or any other products, it's
definitely not companies making things that the customers are asking for.
Yeah.
It's definitely not that. Don't look there.
I think I'm now, after this podcast, I'm going to resign myself. I'm never getting invited to another Ubiquiti thing again. Yes.
That wasn't my intention when I started this. But they are. I mean,
they, in my opinion, they've screwed up on this when they named the end user ISP. They screwed up, plain and simple.
Yep.
Everything else I could have gone along with. Okay, I can see the argument.
Let me ask you. There's one other thing. Sorry, I know we're like, we're tying up, but if you're somebody like Winncom, right? Because there are other people that sell Elevate licenses. What are you thinking today?
Yeah, buddy, I'm getting out my my agreement. Okay,
cease and desist selling licenses. That's probably what I would do.
But
or I would terminate my relationship with Ubiquiti. Hey, I don't want to tell you.
I believe everybody under the sun. It's kind of like when everybody was, when Trump, not to go into politics too much, but when Trump said CNN, I'm not even taking your conversation. I'm not talking to you. Fox and CNN hate each other, but Fox did an entire 15-minute talk about how this is wrong, how Trump should take their questions, and da-da-da. You know what? I would love to see every other vendor just say, I'm not pushing your product. I'm not ordering anything else. I don't care what minimums we have until you turn this, blah, blah. Could you imagine if, Streakwave and everybody else just said, when our customers call, we're going to tell them about the other product lines, at the end of the day, just like the news media did, and the White House hasn't canceled any other CNN credentials since, right? I think the rest of the industry could actually help the end ISP's costs here as well. But they have a lot to lose, whether they realize it or not. They have a lot to lose, because what's to say, hey, Double Radius and Streakwave and all of these other guys, you're part of this now too.
Yep. Yeah, because that's what I would be if I was one of those distributors. I'd be asking Ubiquiti, what are you going to name me tomorrow?
I don't think they were colluding with the others.
Yeah,
it wasn't a whole big collusion thing.
Yeah, they're trying to make
just this group here that was trying to collude, and these other people just happened to be selling this stuff,
But still,
So all they did was chose the WISP, or the U.S. based WISP that's on the case study page. So now do we need to go through all of the Ubiquiti case study pages and claim that all of those case studies are collusion for whatever fucking BS reason?
Yep.
because that's all Ubiquiti's done.
Okay, I have one point, then I'm done. So, WISPA, okay? We have WISPA. We have a vendor member that is suing a... I'm going to assume that they're a member of WISPA, the ISP that's getting sued, because we know who he is. So I'm going to assume he's a member. Now, what happens when this case is done? I realize WISPA is not going to get in the middle. They're probably going to say, hey, this is in the courts. We're not going to have a comment on it until it's done. So is WISPA as a organization, when this is done, however it's decided, because it's not going to be a handshake and hey, we decided to be friends and this is all done. Somebody's going to come out ahead. Somebody's going to say, hey, I'm vindicated. Is WISPA going to censure somebody, or what's going to happen?
I don't think they're going to do anything, and let me give you an example why. I won a base station from Winncom and 10 radios, right? Do you remember this, Justin?
Yep, I remember that. I was there.
Right. I won a base station and 10 radios from Winncom. I never got it. Fast forward, I beat them up over years. I asked WISPA to get involved. I even went so far as to say, fine, don't send me the radios, don't send me anything. And I got Dennis Burgess, when he was back on the board, to actually kind of get involved. He was the only member that actually even off the board that actually gave a crap, and try getting involved with it. And, and at the end of the day, what ended up, I said, okay, Winncom, why don't you just give the dollar value? Why don't you just give 50% of it? Don't send me any hardware. I don't want it at this point. Why don't you just send 50% of that value to WISPA and give it to them? And WISPA never, their board said, nope, we can't do anything, even though, their board's anemic, not active, in my opinion, enough to actually, in terms of this kind of stuff, they don't care. They're just going to say, hey, that's between two members, we're not going to get involved.
Which I can understand that point.
Yep.
That's between the members, blah, blah, blah. None of this happened at a, WISPA. Well, your thing happened at a WISPA event, but, right. The Cambium versus Ubiquiti didn't happen at a WISPA event. I was just, that's more of a curiosity to me, because you have two members that are squabbling, and one of those members is going to come out ahead.
But Winncom,
and actually all parties are WISPA members. I just checked.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, when you look at it, it'd be best to stay out of it.
Yeah, and they would. Yeah.
Or maybe offer some mediation, third-party mediation.
True.
Something like that. But I have two things to ask. Whatever happened to Elevate on Microtech?
It's in beta.
It's in beta.
You can go download.
Does that change? Is this going to change the Microtech side of things? Is Microtech going to start jumping in on that? And what would happen if they stopped licensing the Elevate and just gave it away?
Which all of my clients that have done Elevate, they've been, 95% of them have been free licenses. Okay. That was part of the, hey, we're going to give you X number of licenses as part of a deal. We're just giving them to you.
Yep. So yeah, it should prove interesting. And I still think they'll allow you to come to the events, Justin. I do.
Oh, I know.
Can I tell you why? Because you and I run the unofficial Ubiquiti board. just like I started all the other ones for the same reason, and it's just like, when vendors, what's his name? Buy-Sells is great now, but the old leader of Buy-Sells, he used to delete people's postings and everything. I was like, hey, here's an unofficial one. Say what you want here, so, but yeah. So yeah, I think you'll be allowed in.
Yeah,
they just might not buy your alcohol.
yeah, or they might get me drunk and take me out back and kick me a couple times.
Yeah, but alrighty, well let's go ahead and put a bow on this, because it's gone a lot longer than I thought it was. I thought it'd be like a 20-30 minute thing.
As the packet turns.
But
Yeah, so consensus is that Ubiquiti has screwed over their users.
They did they screwed up. I won't go so far as screwed over their users, like probably Glenn thinks, but they screwed up.
Yeah, but
well,
alrighty, so
yeah, to me, they screwed up, but it's really what it comes down to. They screwed up, but they've also shown that they're willing to go after an end user, no matter what the cost is. And that to me, that precedent to me is something that's scary, because what it means that we don't mean anything to them, and they honestly don't care about us as an end user. It could have easily been,
Sure.
you know what? If I wrote a review, it could have easily been me. If Justin wrote a review, it could have easily been him. If he did wrote the case study, he would have been enjoined on this suit. And Justin and I do that on our blogs all the time.
I'm probably the one that could have gotten away with it because they probably already blocked me, so they wouldn't have seen it.
Well, you can get into their headquarters wearing that cheerleading outfit you got.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But,
There's some things visuals I don't need.
Okay, so let's
So-
wrap this up. What?
Okay.
What?
I was just going to say, what if there actually was collusion? What if these people were like, we're going to put Ubiquiti out of business? Would that change your mind about them suing a specific ISP? I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah,
think about it. We could just...
I would say that
out of disk space.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, so go ahead and repeat what you just said, Justin Miller.
Mike ran out of disk space.
Yes, I pulled a Greg, except I'm better than Greg in that I was able to recover my recording. So we didn't lose an hour. We just had to kind of hang out for a little bit while I moved some files around. So let's wrap this up. Glenn, if people want to find you, how do they find you?
Easiest way is we brand a couple different products. So easiest way is if you go to www.connectivity.engineer, or you can also go to www.becomeawisp.com. And that's probably the best way. And then you can also find me on Facebook.
All right, Justin Miller, where do we find you at?
Well, if you're going to serve me, you don't.
I did find...
But Facebook or...
yeah.
Facebook is probably the best way, or, or the Little Brother Slack channel. I'm on there.
Yep.
I did find on the case, I did see summons issued to defendants, SAKID, AHMED, BLIP Networks LLC, Cambium Networks Inc., Cambium Networks Ltd., DMITRY, whatever, MOISEEV, Winncom Technologies, Incorporated. So they did say there were summons issued, but apparently not before it went public.
Ooh.
Yeah, that could be bad mojo, man.
The dates filed was 8/7. Summons issued was 8/10.
That's today, yeah.
But
Google, I don't know, a lot of places do deliveries, electronic delivery nowadays, so they may be covered.
But Google alerts popped up this morning. Hey, we see something on Ubiquiti. Hey, we see something on Cambium. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Fun.
Justin Wilson, where do they find you?
J2SW.com.
All right. And as I usually say in the podcast, you can only find me via PayPal because I'm too busy. Leave me alone.
And his PayPal is payments@hopoffacloud.com.
I'm gonna have to put some I'm gonna edit some noise in right as you said that.
Yeah, right.
Beep. All right, guys. Well, have fun, and I guess in the comments, tell us whether you are a Ubiquiti user. Are you gonna keep using Ubiquiti? Are you leaving them because of this? Let us know
Or
how
you
this
don't
plays
give
into
a
your
crap.
decisions. Yeah. Tell us if you don't care. Oh, well, I guess if they didn't care, they wouldn't still be here.
They make nice shirts.
They do? That's it. All right. See you later.
See ya, bye.
Now listening to Greg, it's the Brothers Wisp. Let's take a ride through space on this mothership. Wireless networking. We talk about equipment and methodology, so sit back and start learning. Lighting up the tower so people can start searching. Shooting up the web in neighborhoods, net surfing. We got horrible jokes, we're loud and annoying, but we're informative facts, we're not disappointing. Just give us a listen, cause fun is the mission. I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.